Hey everybody, I'm back. So today I was reading Psychology Today, and I came across an article that I thought was interesting. And the article is called Slips of the Tongue. I think that's a cool picture, like the concept. And basically it talks about when you're trying not to say something, the more you think about it, the more you say it. It says, and I'm going to read directly from the magazine. It says, the problem is the more the conscious mind, which is the prefrontal cortex, wants to suppress a thought, the more the unconscious has to check to make sure we're not thinking it, so we think more about it. We're just trying to do the right thing and not make embarrassing slips. And the conscious mind usually prevails. But sometimes it fails and sabotages us, and the very thought we try to suppress pops into our minds and rolls off our tongues. So they give an example, and it's the men who sat in the room with the beauty made. So it's given an example saying that this woman posing as a lab assistant meets with young heterosexual men. She's wearing a translucent, nearly transparent, off-the-shoulder top with a short yellow skirt. And we have her sitting on a stool where her knees were at eye level with the guys. All of the men were asked to read silently at the rate of 1 per second. Word pairs. Back mud, back mouth, bat much, mad bug, designed to induce spoonerisms. I don't know what that is. A buzzer prompted them periodically to say a target pair out loud. Okay, so you have this lady who's posing as a lab assistant. She is with these young heterosexual men, and then the men are reading these pairs of words that they have to eventually say out loud. These men who sat in the room with this woman made significantly more sexual slips. For instance, they say get laid instead of let gade, and bare shoulders instead of share boulders. Then the group that met with the middle-aged male professor. Later, the researchers repeated the same experiment, this time adding a scale to measure sexual anxiety. The more sexual anxiety a subject registered, the more slips of sexual nature. The finding was surprising. The team had expected the sexual anxious to exert extra caution and make fewer sexual slips, not more. So they expected them to not make as many slips as they did because they were consciously trying not to say anything sexual. But when you're consciously trying not to say something, your prefrontal cortex is working, and that has to do with your executive functioning. And your executive functioning deals with I have it written down. As you can see, I'm like really into this stuff. So the executive functioning is managed by the frontal lobe, and it self-controls the brain, meaning that it takes care of decision processing, attention and concentration, self-monitoring, basically when you check what you do before you do it, self-awareness, anticipation and planning, and inhibition control. So it stops you from acting out on something. And when you have a deficiency in executive functioning, you're more at risk for like aggressive behavior. That's why some people, some studies have shown that criminals have damage to their prefrontal cortex. So like therefore they have more of an aggressive nature, and everything that I just listed, they're at risk to not have that like developed 100%. you know, so their decision processing may not be up to par as other individuals that do not have damage to their prefrontal cortex, and their attention and concentration, and etc., etc. So I think it's interesting how, you know, I mean, I know I'm not the only one that has thought this, but I'm thinking like, okay, the more you say not to do something to your brain, the more you're not gonna do it. Like, for instance, if you're in a relationship and you really love this person, but you don't want to be the first one to say I love you, and then you keep telling yourself, okay, don't say I love you, wait until he says it, don't say I love you, don't say I love you, then basically you have a higher risk to actually just blurt it out, because you're working so much not to say I love you that you're thinking about it more, hence you being able to have a slip. So I think that'll be good to remember, you know, when you go on job interviews, and let's say that something's going on with the person that's interviewing you, like they have like a mole or something, or like something very distracting is going on, and you're thinking in your head like, don't talk about the mole, don't talk about the mole. The more you say that, like the more you'll probably slip and talk about the mole and mention it, and that's happened to me like a couple of times before. And that's even happened to me, like, yeah, I was telling myself not to talk about this guy's mole on his face. It was like right here, like a Enrique Iglesias type of mole, even though he got his surgically removed. But so I kept telling myself, I was like, don't mention the mole, don't mention the mole, because, you know, I didn't want to put someone on the spot. I don't know, but I actually ended up mentioning it, and then I felt like really stupid. But yeah, that was super embarrassing. But yeah, that's why I like these kind of articles, because they teach you stuff that you maybe you knew it, maybe you didn't, but you know, you end up learning a lot of things that you probably wouldn't have learned elsewhere. Let me see if I find anything else that seems to be of interest, but like something really short. This is interesting that I read on the train. Okay, really quick. This little article talks about, it's called A Better Place, Under God or Over God. Faith varies by state. And it basically says that depending on where you live, depending on your economic situation of your state, depending on the economic situation, the what else did it say? Education, safety, food. The more you have, the more you don't have to worry about your safety, the more you don't have to worry about your educational system or the food that you have, the less likelier you are to have faith in a higher power. It says, does God exist? It depends where you live. Researchers assessed the well-being of more than 300,000 Americans and then examined why some states embrace religion and others dismiss it. People who live in an economically depressed area where food, safety, and education are limited are more likely to have faith in a higher power and derive happiness from religion. Researchers report in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. Here's how 3 states stack up. So they mentioned Vermont, Michigan, and Mississippi. Vermont is the least religious. In a state like Vermont, where income and education are high and crime is low, residents are least likely to dangle rosaries from their rear views or nail mezuzahs, I don't know what that is, to their door frames. When people can find social support, meaning, or purpose in life elsewhere, religion is less important. In Michigan, where they are moderately religious, Michigan represents the country's median rate of religion. Spirituality is social. People are more likely to find faith when they live in states where a higher percentage of people are believers. In a middling state like Michigan, other factors, family, Personal circumstances determine individual devotion. Okay, that didn't say too much. I like the one about Vermont. And Mississippi is the most religious. When earthly conditions are bad, heaven looks especially appealing. Mississippi, which ranks near the bottom in income, health, and education, has the highest percentage of residents who say religion is important to their daily lives. Those worst off have the most to gain from religion, and prayer is most likely to bring happiness in places where it might otherwise be exclusive. I can see that. I can definitely see how this can be true. It'd be interesting to kind of study it more and to even, get more states, and it'll probably be a lot of funding to get like all 50 states, but to get a couple states here and then a couple states from like other places in the world, like Europe or Asia, and also to factor in like the value system of people, because if you as a person are content with what you have, then I think that has a lot to do with it. Because in America, we tend to put a high value on things that in reality don't matter. Like cars and how many homes you have and how many degrees you have, and like that stuff doesn't matter at the end of the day. But in other places where the value system is shifted and it's not so much about like climbing the ladder, I would like to see how religion plays a part in that. I think I'm gonna like research that more because that sounds really interesting. Yeah, I'm a nerd if you haven't realized. Yeah, so okay, I just wanted to share that really quickly, and if I find something else, I think that's what I'm gonna start making videos on. I'm just gonna start making videos on like the things that I find interesting, like from Psychology Today or like nutrition magazines, and like science and like Time magazine. Oh my god, I love Time, and like National Geographics. So that's what I'm gonna do. So stay tuned for that. Bye.